If you have your Bibles and want to be turning to Genesis chapter 39, we're going to be reading there in just a moment. Genesis 39. As a gift one year, we got one of our kids a Rubik's Cube. She set it on the shelf in her room. It had all the colors and sides lined up nicely. Until a younger sibling came in and mixed it all up. She brought it to us and with tears in her eyes, said, "I'll never be able to get it back to the way it was. This is impossible." I was taking a business law class in college, and on the first exam, I got a D. And I started to calculate what it would take to get my grade back up to a B or maybe even an A. I would have to do well on the quizzes. I would have to turn in the assignments. I would have to stop skipping class. And I thought to myself, after looking at everything in front of me, this is impossible. We were playing against a team that was undefeated. Every player was bigger than Levi Hoffman and could hit the ball to the outfield. We were just trying to find our hats and gloves in the dugout and get out onto the field. And a parent asked me, "What's it looking like for today's game?" And I thought in my head, this is impossible. We ever face an impossible situation? We look at the circumstances and all of the factors involved, and we think to ourselves, there's no way. I can't do this. It's too hard. I'd like for us to think about that topic for a few minutes tonight and ask the question, is purity possible? And we're going to read from Genesis chapter 39, beginning in verse 2. The Lord was with Joseph, and he was a successful man, and he was in the house of his master, the Egyptian. And his master saw that the Lord was with him, and that the Lord made all that he did to prosper in his hand. So Joseph found favor in his sight and served him. Then he made him overseer of his house, and all that he had he put under his authority. So it was from the time that he made him overseer of his house and all that he had, that the Lord blessed the Egyptian's house for Joseph's sake. And the blessing of the Lord was on all that he had in the house and in the field. Thus he left all that he had in Joseph's hand. He did not know what he had except for the bread which he ate. Now Joseph was handsome in form and appearance. And it came to pass after these things that his master's wife cast longing eyes on Joseph. And she said to him, "Lie with me." But he refused and said to his master's wife, "Look, my master does not know what is with me in the house, and he has committed all that he has to my hand. There is no one greater in this house than I, nor has he kept back anything from me but you, because you are his wife. How then can I do this great wickedness and sin against God?" So it was, as she spoke to Joseph day by day, that he did not heed her, to lie with her, or to be with her. But it happened about this time, when Joseph went into the house to do his work, and none of the men of the house was inside, that she caught him by his garment, saying, "Lie with me." But he left his garment in her hand and fled and ran outside. Joseph is a familiar character in the scriptures to us. There is much that is devoted to the events throughout his life. But when we pick up in Genesis 39, we find him living as a slave in the land of Egypt. His brothers have sold him down into Egypt, and he's been placed in the house of an Egyptian commander, a man by the name of Potiphar. But despite the difficult circumstances that Joseph was in, God has not forsaken him. God has not left him. He has continued to bless Joseph. And everything that Joseph is put in charge of begins or continues to prosper. And so eventually he works his way to the point where he is over the entire house. There is nothing that is not under his control. You ever had that type of responsibility? One time when I was in college, a family at the church asked if I would house sit for them. That's not something I had done much of, but I agreed to do it. And I found out what that was involved in. That was that I got to sleep in their beds and eat the food from their pantry and watch their cable TV. And when all of that was done, they paid me for it. All that they had was under my responsibility. And that's where Joseph finds himself in the house of Pharaoh. He is trusted by his master. He's not worried about him stealing or abusing or hiding anything. He has complete confidence in Joseph. Potiphar is not the only one who takes notice of this young man. In verse 6, it says that he was handsome in appearance and form. Joseph is in good shape. And verse 7 says that Potiphar's wife cast her eyes upon Joseph. This phrase indicates more than just a look. There is a deliberate and prolonged attention that is shown to Joseph. She has been watching this young man who is working in the home. And she has taken notice of him, and it has produced inside of her heart a desire for something sinful. She cast her eyes upon him. The eyes are the gateway. They are the starting point to craving, to lust, and ultimately to sin. In Genesis chapter 3 and verse 6, it says that the woman saw that the food was good to eat and that it was a delight to the eyes. It started with the sight. In Joshua chapter 7, when they bring Achan before the assembly, he says that I looked and I saw a beautiful garment. I saw the silver and the gold. and I took it for myself. How often have we been drawn into temptation by the things that we see? She cast her eyes upon him. She eventually makes her intentions clear. What she had been thinking about in her mind and her heart now is manifested in her actions when she asks Joseph in verse 7 to lie with me. That is another way of saying that she wants to spend the night with him. She wants to have sexual relations with Joseph. This was clearly wrong. And in verse 8, Joseph protests this by saying that the master has placed all things under his control. There is nothing, including the bread that he eats on a daily basis, that has been withheld from Joseph, except for one thing. And that is his wife. But she says, lie with me. There's another phrase in the Bible that's used to describe the relationship between a man and a woman. It's found in Genesis chapter 4, when the first man and the first woman conceived to the first child. Adam, his wife Eve, it says that Adam knew his wife. Do you see the difference there? Potiphar's wife is asking Joseph to lie with her. It is inherently carnal. It is momentary. It is physical. She is wanting to enjoy this pleasure for a moment. Lie with me. It sounds appealing. It sounds like there is some excitement that's involved, but oh, how temporary it is. And it will never compare to what God has blessed the husband and the wife with in marriage. Adam knew his wife Eve. There is a connection, not just physical, but it is a joining of two hearts and minds and souls together. It is to be enjoyed not just for a night, but for the rest of their lives. There is a commitment behind it that says, I will protect you and stay by you, not just for the rest of the evening, but for the rest of our lives. And Satan has taken that beautiful relationship and he's turned it into something cheap. Lie with me. Don't buy what the world is selling. In verse 11, she is persistent. It says in verse 10 that she spoke to Joseph day by day, and he did not heed her to lie with her or to be with her. She is not taking no for an answer. She's coming after him again and again. She waits for the perfect opportunity when no one is in the house. She grabs him by the garment. Now it appears this is no longer a request, but instead she is demanding that Joseph come and be with her. You ever been caught off guard by temptation? There was one night I was doing a little online shopping after the kids had gone to bed. I was shopping for softball socks. This is the life I've always dreamed of. And as I was scrolling through the vendors' options of colors and sizes, all of a sudden there was an advertisement that popped up on the screen for women's swimwear. I don't know what softball socks have to do with bathing suits, but that's what came up. And it's not just sites where we're shopping or looking for some type of thing to buy. Social media is designed in a way to generate clicks and views and to put content in front of us that will cause us to pause, to stop, to watch, even when we're not trying to find it. I wonder what reasons, or maybe a stronger word would be excuses, that Joseph could have offered for giving in to this sin. Perhaps he could have said, I'm stressed. I've got a lot on my plate right now. I've been taken away from my family. I'm in a foreign place. My master's wife is putting a lot of pressure on me. I'm feeling overwhelmed and stressed. And certainly he was under extreme pressure. Or he could have said, I'm feeling bored. It's the same thing again and again. I wake up, I go to the house, I do my chores. My life is just so repetitive. There's nothing exciting that's happening. I'm looking for something more. I want something different. I'm bored. Or what about, I can't help it? There's just no other way out of this. If I don't do what she says, I could lose my job. I could be thrown into prison or something worse. And maybe in his mind, he could have rationalized, well, if God didn't want me to do this, then why does it keep coming up in front of me? Why does this continue to present itself to fall right in my path? And then there's the justification. Nobody's going to find out about this. She had tried to put some of those concerns to rest when she approached him in the house and no one was around. And maybe Joseph could have thought to himself, I'm going incognito on this one. I'm making sure that the history, the track of all this is erased, and tomorrow it will be as if nothing ever happened. No one will find out. And you look at all that was stacked up against Joseph, and you might be saying to yourself, this feels impossible. How could he get himself out of this situation? Well, I want to conclude with 3 applications from the story. And the first is that no one may know, but God sees. Look again at the question that Joseph asks in verse 9. He says, "How then can I do this great wickedness and sin against God?" There was one day in the summer that I had some friends over to the house. And it was hot, so we went to the freezer and got out some of those little Minute Maid popsicles. They came in all different flavors. My friend had the purple one. And we didn't want to eat them in the kitchen. We took them back upstairs because that's where the video games were. And in a moment of excitement and celebration, my friend dropped his purple grape popsicle onto the white cream carpet. And we tried everything. I mean, we were scrubbing at that for a long time, spraying, watering it down, doing whatever we could. And finally, we realized there was only one thing left to do. We scooted the rug over about 5 inches so that you couldn't see the spot. And that was there until my parents sold the house a few years later. We think we can get away with it, don't we? That we can cover it up. Even if no one else finds out about the sin that I've committed, God knows. And God calls you and He calls me to the highest level, to the highest standard. One that is not just walking in purity and in holiness when others are watching, but we are to have integrity and godliness when no one is around. In Psalm 139 and verse 1, it says, "O Lord, you have searched me and know me. You know when I sit down and when I rise up. You discern my thoughts from afar." Joseph understood this point, that no one else may know about this. His family may never hear a word about what he was doing in Egypt, but God, Yahweh, could still see, and He knew. We also see from this account that the best strategy in regards to purity is don't start. Look at verse 10. In verse 10 it says, "So it was as she spoke to Joseph day by day that he did not heed her to lie with her or to be with her." Again and again, she's coming to him. She's asking him day after day. And what is his response? He doesn't say, "Well, I'll try it out on Monday and Wednesday, but I'm not doing it on Tuesday, Thursday, Friday." Or he doesn't say, "Well, let me just give it a try this one time. We'll see how this works out. If it's not going so well, then we'll go a different direction." No, it says day after day he continued to say no. He had resolved that he was not going to go down this path, not even once. We were getting ready for school one morning, and one of the kids was reaching up into a cabinet that was high up. And as she grabbed onto the item she was trying to get, she bumped a glass mason jar that was empty off of the shelf. It came down onto that hard countertop and shattered. I immediately went into dad mode. Nobody take a step. Everybody hold in place. And one of the kids had not heard the instruction, and he came around the corner to get his lunch out of the refrigerator, and I told him to stop. Don't take a step. Now, why was I doing that? I was trying to prevent people from getting breakfast, slow them down. No, it was because I understood that there was a danger there. That there was something that could cause pain and hurt, even if it wasn't seen by the others in the room. We live in a different time, don't we? Technology has brought temptation to our fingertips. Now, things that used to be on the street corner or in a roped off section are now accessible, available. And is so damaging, has become a snare, a point of stumbling for many, including many in this room. For the young people, I would just say to you that your parents put rules in place, not because they're trying to take something away from you or hinder you, but because they understand the danger. And they want to keep you safe. They want to keep you from forming a habit that is incredibly difficult to break. Sometimes the best strategy for overcoming or avoiding is to never start in the first place. In verse 10, it says that Joseph would not allow himself to be around Potiphar's wife. He had set up a boundary for himself and said, I'm not going to cross it. I'm not going to be with her. I'm not going to lie or lay down with her. And it's important for us to do the same, to put boundaries in place and not put ourselves into a situation where it's going to be very difficult to say no. Those who stop to investigate sin will soon find themselves staying to enjoy it. Joseph had boundaries, and maybe for us, that's not being on the phone late at night or spending time alone with someone of the opposite sex for long periods of time. Don't give sin a place to stand. And finally, we may need to drop everything and run. When I was in 6th grade, I got to school one morning. I was in the courtyard area where all the students gathered before classes started. And one of my friends came up to me and he said, "Have you seen the picture?" You want to know what the next thing I said was? What picture? What is it? I don't know what this is. And with much laughter, he went on to tell me that there was a picture that someone had brought to school of a well-known cartoon. But it had been altered so all of the characters were not wearing any clothes. And it was being passed around and shown to all of the kids in the class. How many times has curiosity led us down a path of trouble? It starts out as harmless. I just want to know what it is. I just want to see. Everybody's talking about it. Everybody has seen it. That's not true. But we start to tell ourselves that I'm the only one that doesn't know about this. I just want to check it out. I want to watch a little bit. Let me tell you, when you're about to be exposed to something that is wrong or sinful, I don't care who it is, if it's your best friend or if it's somebody in your family or whoever it might be. Sometimes the best thing to do is just to get up and run. Go the other direction. Get yourself out of that situation. Joseph didn't hang around to see if she would stop bothering him. He left the garment in the room. He put himself at risk, his reputation, his job, his life. But those things weren't as important to him as his purity and his character. Paul told the young preacher Timothy in 2 Timothy 2 and verse 22, that when faced with lust, the best course of action was to flee, to run away, to remove yourself from the situation. I can tell you, I've walked out of movies. I've quit watching the series. I've stopped reading the book. I've ended a friendship. And Joseph understood that this situation required big action. If he was going to get himself out of this situation, he had to run. We can't always control the circumstances we find ourselves in. Sometimes what pops up in front of us is not expected. What walks past us or what's presented to us by a friend or someone else, we have no control. But we do control our response, what we do next. Is purity possible? Joseph shows us that we can stay true to our God. In Romans chapter 5 and verse 20, there is an amazing statement. Paul says that where sin abounds, grace abounds much more. Whatever mistakes and failures we have made in the past, God's grace exceeds them all. And he stands ready to forgive, to strengthen and help us in whatever we're facing, if we're willing to humble ourselves and ask him for help. If there's something that we can do to help or encourage you in your walk with Christ, please use this time now as together we stand and sing.